Hello and welcome. My name is Claire Reynolds. I am the CEO and head mistress at Boss City Beauty Academy, and we are going to dive into this three-part series over your state board examinations. So, in part one, the part you're currently tuned into, we're going to go over TDLR and the PSI packet itself. In part two, we will dive into the written state board, and in part three, we will dive into the practical state board for cosmetologists. So, if you are in Texas and you are currently doing a 1,000-hour cosmetology program and you are ready to prepare and get licensed, stay tuned for this three-part series as it will greatly benefit you. So, to get started, TDLR is the licensing board and regulatory agency that is going to essentially rule over your license. They have partnered with PSI, which we have over here, who is administering both your written and your practical exam. So first, let's go to the TDLR website. As you can see here, we have the main homepage, and then we're going to hit license types and scroll down to cosmetologist, which is you in the making. Congratulations on that. This is your cosmetology homepage for TDLR. For you, you will have on this right-hand side the cosmetology home, renewing a license, applying for a new license, searching for licenses, forms and publications, digitally prearranged remote services, laws and administrative rules. That's going to be a really big one when we go into the written portion of your exam, as some of your tests will be taken directly from this tab here. The continuing education requirements, inspection information, frequently asked questions, complaints and enforcements, and the advisory board. So there's a lot for you to get familiar with. Just know for now that TDLR is the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulations. They oversee your license and the activities that you are legally allowed to perform as a licensed cosmetologist. They have entrusted PSI Services LLC to administer both your written and your practical exam. What I'm looking at right now is the Candidate Operator Licensing Examination Candidate Information Bulletin. This PDF packet will be copied and pasted into your Cosmetic Beauty online course and at the bottom of this video so that you can click it and go to it. What I will say with that is that it's important to understand that this can be updated by PSI and TDLR at any time. So while you are studying and preparing for your exam, as long as it is within, your exam is within, I would say 60 days, then no changes should impact your test coming up. But if your exam is more than 60 days out, then I would make sure to visit the PSI website and download the newest version of this booklet. So let's dive right into it. This is about a 20-page document. I believe it's 20 or 26. I'm not quite sure. There are a few pages that we're going to skip through for part one, and then we will loop back around to in part two and three because they specifically go over the written exams. So let's start with this website here. www.psi.exams. It's going to take you to PSI's website where you can schedule your remote or in-facility written exam, as well as scheduling your practical exam. So that is the website. It's directly linked. If it were up to me, instead of trying to remember this website, I would go to the packet. So we're going to go back and pull our packet back up. And I would just make sure to click PSI's website directly from the packet because they have actually a couple of different websites. So it's a lot easier for you to make sure you're using the right one if you click it directly from the packet. So with that said, the first thing you're always going to remember is to check the updates as they come out. As PSI and TDLR make updates to your exam, they will notate that information at the very top of the packet. So I have it highlighted here, and we're just going to annotate so that we can circle that information. So let's hit draw. Let's get ourselves a transparent circle, and let's talk about some information that's important to all test takers. So candidates must present the paper ID or driver's license renewal along with supporting documents in order to test. So a copy of your cell phone, a copy on your cell phone will not be permitted. So what they're saying is when we talk about the required IDs If for whatever reason your required ID is not valid or you lost it and you've gotten a temporary one, they are saying that you must present the physical paper version of that ID along with the supporting documents that are going to be listed below. Having the proper ID when you take your exam is super important because failure to show proper identification will result in you not being able to test. Okay, from there, the waiver on expiration dates for driver license and ID cards ends on April 14th, 2021. GPS encourages candidates who need to renew to schedule an appointment online at their local driver's license. So during the COVID situation, there was a leeway on expiration dates. That is no longer in effect because at the time of filming, October 2022, that is past the deadline. So that information is no longer valid. You cannot get a waiver on an expired driver's license. You must have an up-to-date active ID. And then the last updated effect is coming into effect September 1st, 2023. That's after the filming of this call. The examination will reference the Milady Standard Cosmetology 2023 textbook and Milady Standard Foundations 2020. So the test will then come from 2 textbooks. It is not necessarily recommended that you study both 2020 and 2023. The textbook that your school gives you, as long as it's one of these 2, is perfectly sufficient to allow you to study and pass the state board exams. All right, so let's go into a little bit of table of contents when it comes to the packet and what we're going to be looking at. So for the table of contents, you have that information here. Let's go ahead and make this a square. So let's go to draw and let's do a nice square because that'll make that a lot easier. So for this table of contents, there are information about PSI services, the examiner, the examination fees. That is going to be a very important question for you. So make sure that you are paying attention when we're talking about examination fees. Online via internet scheduling, telephone scheduling, mail scheduling, rescheduling, losing your fee, accommodations, different languages the exam is available in, the testing site closing for emergencies, examinations review, site locations that you can take the exam, what reporting to the examination site looks like, feels like, when, so on and so forth, rules for the examination site. A big one, required identification and safety procedures. If you are not familiar with those by the end of the call, please rewatch it because it's very important that you have the required identification. Taking your exam at the PSI test sites, written score reporting, taking your exam on your personal computer. This is awesome. This is an update post-pandemic that allows you to test from home on your personal computer. So this is an option available to you if you'd like to do that. Then you have the written examination that we are going to skip in this call, the practical examination information that we're going to skip in this call. Remember, that's our part 2 and our part 3. And then the examination registration form, an exam accommodation request form if you decide to mail in the information, which I am personally not going to recommend you do. It is much easier to schedule online. Okay, so we're going to move down from there. Let's clear our annotations. And let's talk about the examination by PSI services. So the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulations, TDLR, has contracted PSI to deliver the examination. Here are some important contact information for both of these agencies. Please screenshot this information if you need to, and go ahead and save it. If you need to call or visit the website or email TDLR regarding examinations, that is the information you will use. Same thing with PSI, that is the information that you will use. So let's just take this quick note here and go ahead and read through it. Again, things that are red, blue, things that are outside of the normal black are going to be things that they're trying to draw your attention to. So I would make sure to read it and identify with it. So beginning March 1st, 2021, PSI will begin to offer the cosmetology written examination online. Great news for us. The new online testing platform utilizes an environment that has a remote proctor using secure technology to observe the test taker using their own desktop, webcam, and audio to confirm their identity. This allows the candidate to complete the required license examination in a controlled environment. So this is really, really amazing information. It is post March 1st, 2021. And because there are no updates, you can see that this is still in effect. If the newest book 6 months from now, 6 years from now, this video is pretty much evergreen. The only thing that changes is updating the book. And so if this goes away, you will note by an update at the top of the PSI candidate packet. So keep that up to date. Use the newest candidate packet as you are preparing for your exam. One thing that I can tell you is that the PSI does not make changes that are immediate. It's typically 30, 60, 90, even 12 months out from now. A perfect example of that is they're changing the book. They have let us know now, it's October, that between October and September 1st, they will start referencing the new 2023 textbook. So we have all of this time to start preparing. So as academies, we prepare to make that change if we want to change to the new book. And as a student coming in, if your program starts in November, as long as you test before September 1st, you know that everything on your exam is coming directly from the 2020 version of that book. And then after September 1st, everything is coming from 2023 and 2020 versions of that book. So you have more than enough time to prepare yourself. This is not the kind of agency that is going to give you a 24-hour notice. Okay, let's move on to examination payment and scheduling procedures. Once you have been approved to take your state board exam, so you have been dropped from your program, you have graduated, all of your hours have been accounted for, your school has done their due diligence, TDLR can take anywhere from 24 hours to 10 business days to process your information and send you the approval eligibility email and postcard. Once you have been made eligible, you must pass the written before you can sit for the practical. And examination eligibilities are good for 5 years, and you may test an unlimited number of times during this period. So you are encouraged to study between examination attempts and sit for your exam as soon as possible after attending the program, because a separate fee is required for each examination attempt. But if you are a nervous test taker and you have to take it more than once, that is not necessarily a bad thing. Just know that you pay for each attempt and you have an unlimited amount of tries, but your eligibility is good for 5 years. So the written examination at this time of filming this video is $55. Every time you take the exam, it is $55 for your written, and your practical is $76. So $55 for the written, $76 for the practical. Depending on your academy, at Boss Lady Beauty Academy, you're responsible for this fee. So after you have been dropped from the system, the academy system, and TDLR has determined your eligibility, you are then eligible to go online, mail in, or call and pay that $55 fee to schedule your written. And then once you pass your written, pay the $76 fee to schedule your practical. So from there, please note there are 3 options to schedule: via the website, which we're going to go into next, which is in page 3, telephone, which is, in my opinion, the simplest way because you get a PSI agent who can easily schedule you, and standard mail. Standard mail is the least preferred option. I am not even going to go over page 6. We're going to skip standard mail. Do not mail in your state board licensing fee. Do not mail in any of this information. They cover the entire state of Texas and multiple exams. So we're going to pretend like standard mail is not even an option. You have 2 options: telephone or website. So website, online scheduling. In order to do that, you are going to fast and conveniently click the link here, which is going to take you to PSI's website. We're not going to click it because we don't want to get off of our PDF. We're going to follow the written steps that are already displayed here. So we will click sign up. We will click the 3 lines, scroll down to sign up. It'll prompt you to enter and create an account with PSI. Important information. Enter the candidate ID that TDLR provided you. So TDLR provided you a student ID. That is the number you will need to register for that account. Your first and last name must match exactly with the information that TDLR has on file, or the process will not work and it will be a pain. After you've done that, you're going to submit the form and you'll get a message that your account was successfully created. You're going to log in, select the examination details, enter your personal information, make your $55 payment for your written. After you've done the written, you'll make your $76 payment for the practical. And then you will select if you want to take the examination at a PSI test center. We'll go over the locations available to you and or from home on your own laptop. When they introduced this, it was a lot more difficult to do it online. They have cleaned up the process and made it much easier to schedule. So it's really a matter of comfort if you prefer to schedule via their website or schedule via the phone. If you run into any issues scheduling via the website, just call them. Don't stress out. Don't, get upset. It's easy to pick up the phone. The number's at the top of the packet. Give them a call and go ahead and set up that exam for your earliest convenience. They'll walk you right through it. So if you select to take your written examination at a test center, you'll follow the instructions on the packet. It will have you select the location. It will have you select the date and the available times, and it will then book it for you. You will show up to that examination site during that day, on that day and on that time, and you will be good to go. From there, if you selected to take your written exam online using your own computer, then you will be following this set of steps. Okay. You're doing the proctored exam. You're still selecting the date. You're still selecting the times. And same system as booking during the website the other way, but this time you are selecting the information and letting them know that you are testing from home. If you decide to do the telephone scheduling, you will call the number listed here, Monday through Friday between 6:30 a.m. and 9 p.m. and Saturday through Sunday between 8 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. They will take your payment and schedule your examination all via the phone. Again, standard mail registration is an option, but please, for me in my heart, don't do it. Call them or book on the website. That will make your life much, much, much easier because you have to kind of allow, time to process the information. It's just not fun. So then rescheduling an appointment. You may reschedule an examination appointment without forfeiting your fee if your notice is received 2 days before the scheduled examination date. You may reschedule online or by phone. So take a moment, write that down. This is very important information for you. You can reschedule your exam an unlimited number of times as long as you're scheduling it 2 days before the actual exam. And they do mean down to the minute. So I'm recording this Wednesday at 11 a.m. Let's say that I had scheduled my exam for Friday at 12. I have until today, Wednesday, to reschedule that exam via the website or phone before I forfeit my fee. 2 days up to the minute. So what I would recommend is if you know you're not going to be able to take your exam 4 or 5 days in advance, you need to reschedule as soon as possible. If you don't, you will forfeit that $55 or that $76 fee, and PSI will not change that for you. All right, let's go ahead and move on down. As you can see here, it is noted that a voicemail or email message is not an acceptable form of rescheduling. Please use the PSI website or call PSI to speak directly to a customer service representative. With that being said, you have to talk to someone or book on the website. You cannot email them or leave a voicemail to cancel, even if it's more than 2 days before, and think that that's going to suffice. So let's talk about losing your examination fee. Your registration will be invalid. You will not be able to take the examination as scheduled, and you will forfeit your examination fee if you do any of the following 5 things. You do not reschedule your appointment at least 2 days before. You do not appear for your examination appointment, so you no-show. You arrive after the examination start time. This does count for even working from home. So if you take your test from home and it's scheduled for 10 a.m. and you sign in at 10:15, they do not have to let you test. You do not present proper identification when you arrive for the examination, and you are not dressed appropriately for the practical examination. All of those things will lose your examination fee, and you will not be able to test. You have to repay the $55 or $76. So there are some exam accommodations that are available to you according to the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA of 1990. You just need to call and contact PSI to make sure you follow through with that process. There is a form at the end of the packet that you can fax to them. I would fax that form and also make sure I call and speak to someone. The exam is also offered in foreign languages. I'll just pause for a second, allow you to read through that. Same thing for the examination site closing for an emergency. And then we'll go into examination review, which is going to be done after you're written. So go ahead and read the screen, examination in foreign languages, and examination site closing for an emergency. Perfect. So, examination review. PSI in cooperation with TDLR will regularly be evaluating the examination that's administered. Basically, what they're telling you is that you will, after your exam is done, and this is for the written only, be able to provide feedback regarding the exam. It is important that if you do have feedback, there's something you notice about the exam, or there's something that, is left in questions, that you do that examination review process, because it ultimately makes the exam process better for, the people to come. So moving on to exam site locations, they started this section off pretty strong, and just let you know that it's your responsibility to make sure you show up to the correct examination site. There is no, oh, I scheduled here, but I'm going to go here instead, showing up late, all of those things. It's very important that you schedule and show up to the proper examination site. Here is the list of all of the PSI examination locations in Texas. Please note that some of them say written examination only, and some of them say written and practical. Essentially, what they're telling you is that if you want to take the written, you can take it at certain places. If you want to take the practical, you can take it at certain places. Some of these locations offer written and practical in one physical location. Some cities do not. It is important for you to understand that information for your city. So we are a Texas-based campus in San Antonio and Waco currently at the time of filming. So we're going to move to San Antonio and Waco. As you can see, there are 2 examination sites in San Antonio. I've highlighted them pink for you. San Antonio has a written only site, so you can go there and take just your written. And San Antonio has a written and practical examination site, so you can go there and take your written and practical. It is 100% up to you, whichever you're more comfortable with. For me, I would take my written from if I'm going to take my written from the PSI site, I would do that at the same location. I would not take my written at the first park location and then my practical at the other. If you are going to take your written from home, then the only place you could take your practical is the 9502 Computer Drive. Same thing for Waco. If you notice, Waco only has, in the city of Waco, an examination location for the written. So you can take your written exam in Waco, and then you will have to take your practical exam either in San Antonio, Midland, McAllen, Houston, not Harlingen, El Paso, Dallas, or Austin, and Amarillo. So if you're a Waco student in Texas, then you are able to take your written in Waco or online, and you will have to travel to take your practical. There are a few PSI testing centers outside of Texas. If for whatever reason you're traveling and you need to take that exam outside of Texas, you have to call them. There's no way to do it on the website. You have to call them and schedule that way. So this is the check-in process to take your examination. This is both written and practical. And then here are some security procedures. I'm just going to focus on the identification requirements. So you must provide one form of identification. It must be a valid form of government issued ID, such as a driver's license, state ID, or passport book. Notice there's an asterisk next to passport book. And the identification must contain the following bibliographical information: name, photograph, signature, date of birth, expiration date. Your temporary license or ID will only be accepted if it is accompanied by the expired or invalid license or another form of photo ID. So if your driver's license expires and you renew it, you can use the printed renewal version of the ID and the expired version. But if you lose your license, you can't just use the printed. You would need to include a different government issued ID like a passport. So then you have the asterisks for passport book. Please note there's a passport book and a passport card. Passport cards do not contain the bibliographical information listed above. So you can do a passport book, not a passport card. The best way to approach this is to take a valid government issued driver's license, ideally a Texas one. If you do not have a Texas driver's license, if your name is not correct on your driver's license, if you lose your driver's license, please make sure that you reschedule that exam 2 days before the exam date so that you don't forfeit your fee, and that you bring only a valid driver's license so that you can take that exam. It's not worth it to hope they accept it, because 9 times out of 10 they won't. Current public high school IDs are valid when accompanied by a photocopy of the TDLR student permit. If you have graduated from high school, your ID is only valid until August 31st of that year. Again, bring your Texas driver's license. Don't try to use an alternative. It just makes your job and your process harder. You can bring a current community college and junior college ID as a valid government issued ID and require only your printed name, photograph, and date of birth. But the identification provided must match all information provided by TDLR to PSI upon eligibility. A digital copy of your ID or documentation will be taken upon check-in and stored with your personal data. You need the valid ID. I'm recommending only a government-issued state driver's license ID. You cannot Have your ID for your written, and then because they photocopy it into their system, not have it for your practical. You have to bring that valid ID for both exams. Even when you are testing from home on your own computer, they are going to verify your valid ID. So it's important that you have it ready and good to go. Some security procedures. It is important for you to understand this list of prohibited items and behavior. I'm going to give you a moment to screenshot them both. There we go. Security procedures and prohibited behavior. Go ahead and screenshot them both. This is page 11 and 12. Essentially, you are going to make sure that you don't bring anything that you're not supposed to bring, like reference materials, electronics of any type, not limited to cell phones, cameras, video cameras, AirPods, iPods. You do not want any hats or headgear that are not worn for religious reasons. No bulky or loose clothing or coats, including but not limited to open sweaters, cardigans, shawls, scarves. If you're testing in the winter, leave your heavy coat in the car, suffer from your car to the building. It will make your life a lot easier to not have to worry about it. Any other personal items. If you are someone who rides public transportation to the testing site, you only need to bring your ID and your phone. When you get into that facility, they're going to have a place for you to put your items away, but you don't want to have excess items like a backpack. Prohibited behavior, giving or receiving assistance on the examination, especially to another person taking the exam, copying or communicating examination content. So you cannot take notes for the exam, you cannot record the exam, can't take pictures, screenshots. You can't use any outside references or resources for the exam. You can't browse the internet. You can't bring a notebook. You can't bring anything that is going to be considered outside resources. All that you can bring in is your brain. So study well. You can't engage in destructive behavior during check-in or out or during the exam process. You have to be professionally dressed, and you have to behave professionally at all times. And then you can't engage in prohibited behavior during check-in, the exam, or leaving. Reading out loud, leaving the room without proctor approval, using instant messenger, text, phone, anything, capturing pictures or video, attempting to use your phone or mobile device, obstructing the proctor's view, camera or up in person, having inappropriate materials, changing spaces without the proctor approval, and not focusing your eyes on the screen. All of those things are considered prohibited behavior and prohibited items, so you want to be familiar with them. If you haven't already, screenshot them and make sure that you understand the rules of the game, because if they have to dismiss you from that exam, it is not a good process. You forfeit your fee, and it just makes your process a lot harder than it needs to be. When you're taking your exam at the PSI site, you will have an identification screen, a short tutorial on how to use the system. Your test questions will be prompted on the screen one at a time. You will have a mark for questions, so you can mark questions to come back to. You will be able to leave comments. You will be able to go to specific questions. You will be able to flag for help, and you'll be able to move through your exam that way. It is a complete computer-based exam, so be prepared to use a computer for the duration of the exam. You will have written score reporting. So for the in-person exam, your score will be displayed on the screen right at the end of your exam. So once you hit submit, you will know if you passed or failed and what your score is. And that diagnostic report will include the sections that you did well in, the sections you didn't do well in, and you will be able to use that information to study if you need to. But we're going to hope that everyone passes on the first try. For the remote practical, the candidate's taking a remotely proctored exam, so the exams from home. You must select to end both the exam portion and survey portion of the exam. So you take the exam and then there's a short survey. Once that's done, you will receive your on-screen results, just like if you took it in person, so you'll know if you passed or failed. And then they will email those results to you as a score report within 24 hours. If you don't receive it within 24 hours, you will need to contact PSI customer service, verify your email, and then they will resend it to you. If you are taking your examination on your own computer, some just pro tips is to be prepared about an hour earlier than your actual scheduled exam. Don't try to log in an hour early, just be prepared an hour early. So if your exam's at noon, don't go out with a friend for lunch at 11 and try to make it back. You want to be at your computer ready to go to take that exam about an hour before, just in case there are any technical difficulties or issues. Before your exam begins, please be aware of the following testing rules. Please be reminded that earbuds, earphones, hats, caps, hoods, shades, or anything placed on the head or face is not allowed. They can see you, it's proctored. They can see you, they can hear you, they can see your surroundings, they can hear your surroundings. They can't ask you to move your computer and your webcam. They can ask to look under your seat, under your desk. I have personally taken an exam from home just to experience it. And I literally had to lift my desktop and walk them around my room. So you want to make sure that you have everything set up. It's neat and clean. You cannot have food or drinks or breaks. They are not allowed. You cannot take a bathroom break, and you cannot leave your computer room at any time. You cannot have food or drinks anywhere on your table, by your computer, or anywhere within reaching distance. They will ask you to remove it. Fun fact, I had a cup of coffee. I don't know why I had a cup of coffee, but he saw the cup of coffee when he was checking my workstation, asked me to move it. Sure, no problem. I go to move it and I knock it over. So then I had to clean off my entire desk. It's not worth it. Just leave that stuff away and you'll have a time to have food and drinks after the exam. It's not a very long exam. You're not allowed to leave, so you cannot take bathroom breaks. Make sure, again, that comes with being ready an hour before. Make sure you go to the ladies' room, the gentleman's room before you log in to take that exam. If you get a nervous tummy, then make sure that you're preparing for that. Again, you could take this test an unlimited amount of times. So go into it prepared to pass and know that if you don't, the opportunity to take it again is there. There's no shame, there's no judgment in doing so. So don't be too nervous. You must keep both of your hands above the desktop during the exam. So if there's an underneath the desk, they can ask to look under. And if you are constantly putting your hands underneath anything, they can stop your exam and forfeit your fee. They then walk you through how to launch the exam, which is a pretty nice guided tutorial. It's going to require a system check. You can do that system check before the exam schedule time. I'd recommend doing it at least 2 to 3 days before the exam so that you know your device is going to pass the system check, because again, you can only reschedule up to 2 days before, and failure to have the proper system is not going to be an excused absence. So for the rest of the packet, we have the written examination, which we're going to talk about in part 2. We have the practical examination, which we're going to talk about in part 3. And then we are going to close out part 1 with the last 2 pages. So if you insist on doing the polar opposite of what Ms. Claire asked you to do and decide to mail your examination registration form, this is the exact form that you will use. So you will print the form and mail it along with the fee to this person, place, thing. All the information you need is here. And if you need to request an out-of-state testing form, all the information, and then the address for PSI's corporate office. So just as a recap, the PSI and TDLR work together. Is TDLR has enlisted PSI to administer our state board exams for cosmetology. You take a written, which is $55. You take a practical, which is $76. Both have to be passed. You take the written first. So once it's passed, you are then able to take the practical. You can take the written from home on a compatible device in a appropriate area, or you can take the written from the PSI examination site There are a list of examination sites in the packet that we went over. Depending on your city and state in Texas, you may have to travel for one or both parts of your exam. If you take it from home, you need to make sure that you're prepared about an hour before the exam and you've tested your system. There are many ways to forfeit your exam fee, most of which are lack of due diligence on your end. So you want to make sure that you fully understand when you're scheduling and that you're prepared. You need to make sure that you are following the proper rules and protocols while in the facility. You need to make sure that you are thoroughly prepared with your proper identification. Again, you can bring a couple of different forms. I personally recommend a Texas driver's license that is not expired. If you insist on using an expired ID, you need the printed temporary ID and the expired one. You can use a passport book, not a passport card. You can use a college ID and or a public high school ID accompanied with the information that is required. It's actually pulled up on the screen. If you're taking your examination in facility, there are security and behavior responsibilities that you need to be aware of. In my opinion, regardless of if you're taking it at PSI or on your own computer, be aware of the security and the protocol and do the exact same thing while you're at home taking a proctored exam. And let's just review, see if there's anything else. Yes, you can take your exam in foreign languages. You can also take your exam with any accommodations that you are qualified for due to the Americans with Disabilities Act. Remember, there's a form that you'll need to fill out and fax over to them. I also recommend calling them and getting that information as well. Lastly, let's go ahead and just recap that at the top of the candidate information bulletin, there are typically updates. So as you're taking the exam and preparing for it, I would recommend checking the PSI website, which is linked here, to make sure that you are using the latest version of the PSI test packet. So thank you so much for tuning in to part 1 of 3 of the intro to your cosmetology state board written and practical examination. We have covered part 1. You are familiar with the policies, the procedures, the rules, the regulations, and what to expect. Under this video and in your Ball State video online, I'm going to link the support materials that I've used. So I'm going to link the PSI test packet. I'm going to link the TDLR website. I'm going to link the PSI website. You are more than welcome to periodically check those for new updates. I would recommend it checking them at least 90 days before any exam is scheduled so that you know you're using the right information. And please stay tuned for part 2 and 3 so that we can review the written, the examination, what sections we'll go over, and same for the practical, the examination, how long you're allowed, what stuff you need to bring, so on and so forth. So over the course of your time at the Academy, we will break down the full written and we will break down the full practical. Stay tuned to parts 2 and 3, and good luck with your Texas Cosmetology State Board exam.